practice, discussing the differentials and the immunohistochemical markers with slight review of the molecular classification, which is upcoming and integrated with the histopathological subtypes. Now, this is the picture of my university. It is a very old university, established, well functioning in 1905, well decorated, and looks very beautiful on Saraswati Puja. So I welcome everybody to my university when this pandemic gets over. Just recapitulating the classification of endometrial carcinoma, the endometrioid subtype, which is the most common, with various differentiations present like squamous differentiation, villo-glandular secretory, mucinous, and papillary differentiation and is there. Second one is serous carcinoma, mucinous, clear cell, and then the uncommon subtypes like neuroendocrine carcinoma, mixed cell carcinomas, where we can find different types of these subtypes, the undifferentiated ones and dedifferentiated ones. Now, carcinosarcoma also I'm including in this one because it is suggested now that it is originating from these carcinomas through malignant mesenchymal MMT transition, and they are also staged according to these endometrial carcinomas. Now, I'll be starting with what Kantilata ma'am had left, so I'll try my level best. Now, first case was a young female with morbid obesity and abnormal uterine bleeding. So she's a young female. We have to be very careful with the biopsy and making a diagnosis of any cancer. The endometrial thickness was of 9 millimeter. Now, point to be noted here is always correlate the biopsy with the endometrial thickness. Talk to clinician, especially in younger females or any diagnosis when there is a diagnostic doubt. Now, I had this biopsy where there is very small focus of endometrioid carcinoma. These were the glands which showed labyrinthine pattern and in a background of endometrial hyperplasia, which was atypical. And this was only a very small focus. So how do we report such cases when we have very small focus of endometrioid carcinoma in a background of EIN or atypical endometrial hyperplasia? When to diagnose and what to say? So the proposed criteria for to differentiate well-differentiated endometrioid FIGO grade 1 carcinoma from EIN or atypical hyperplasia, there are various criteria which have been studied. Lot of studies have been done. So in the CAP protocol, it says that there should be irregular infiltration of myometrium, which we rarely find in a biopsy, or there may be confluent glandular pattern in the form of cribriforming or maze-like epithelium or mosaic pattern of epithelium, or there may be solid non-squamous epithelial growth. So we are lucky enough if we get all these features. We are lucky enough if we get solid non-squamous epithelial growth. But when we are stuck with a biopsy, when we have just a small focus of this cribriforming and complex folded epithelium with no invasion and no solid areas, how do we report? So these are various features when we can find in a biopsy. This is as already discussed by ma'am, how the cribriforming of the gland is seen. There is fusion of glands. This is a very small focus in a biopsy, the surrounding normal endometrium. Or there may be maze-like labyrinthine glands. They also may be mosaic-like pattern back-to-back glands with no intervening stroma, with very small foci of these kind of glands. So how to comment on such biopsy? In some of the studies, it is also suggested that it should be at least 30% of the biopsy. Some studies also suggest that it should be at least 2 millimeter in the biopsy. But recently it is, and what we also practice, that any focus of the carcinoma in endometrioid carcinoma, we report it as foci of FIGO grade 1 endometrioid carcinoma in a background of EIN or hyperplasia To be commented upon is the size of the focus. We had a 2 millimeter focus of carcinoma in the biopsy. Or we can also report as EIN with focus of architectural complexity, or close follow-up of the patient is advised. But what we are practicing is we report it as endometrioid carcinoma. We are aggressive in the reporting, and we write the size of the focus so that we are safeguarded. If we get an hysterectomy specimen, like in this case, I had the hysterectomy specimen again had only one more small focus of 2 millimeter size, and rest was atypical hyperplasia and EIN features. So there are recommendations from the International Society of Gynecological Pathologists, which should be read upon, which discusses the issues in differential diagnosis of gynecological low-grade endometrioid carcinoma and other mimickers. Now, the second case is a postmenopausal female. Previous case was a young female. The second case is a postmenopausal female. The endometrial biopsy, the patient was presenting with postmenopausal bleeding. Now again, what we see? In the low power view, this tumor had papillary pattern. They are well-formed papillae. Some are small papillae. We can see shedding of these tumor cells in the lumen, and the contours are not very well. The lumen is not very well demarcated. On the high power, we can see nuclear atypia. We also saw a lot of mitotic figures. So these were features of serous carcinoma. But in this case, like they are also mimickers of serous carcinoma when there is significant nuclear atypia present. So we should not bump into a diagnosis on histomorphology. Like variants of grade 2 endometrioid carcinoma, especially the villo-glandular and papillary variant, and serous carcinoma, the papillary pattern in serous carcinoma may look identical on small biopsies and are tricky. Wrong diagnosis may affect further management. So always use a immunohistochemistry protocol. Do not bump into a diagnosis. So in this case, I used the panel of P53, ERPR, and P16, which we generally use to differentiate between endometrioid carcinomas and serous carcinoma. So P53 in this case was focal, patchy. So this case was not of serous carcinoma, it was of grade 2 endometrioid carcinoma. We did not do the grading because we had high nuclear features. They were grade 3 nuclear atypia also, and solid areas were not seen. So we gave it as grade 2/3 endometrioid carcinoma. So there are various differentials. The tumors may look like serous on morphology under low power and high power, but they prove to be negative for P53, unmutated P53. So this case I have put to concentrate on the P53 stain, its interpretation, and how it is useful along with other immunohistochemical markers to differentiate between the serous, commoner endometrioid and serous type of carcinoma. So P53 stain in endometrioid carcinoma, it is of wild type, it is patchy. And P53 serous carcinoma, it is mutant type or null type. In the subsequent figures, it will be clearer. This P53 stain in serous carcinoma was null type. There was complete absence of P53 with staining in the neutrophils present. So this is a very good paper on interpretation of P53 immunohistochemistry in the National Journal of Gynec Pathology. The patterns of P53 one should be aware of. Like in serous carcinoma, it is the aberrant or mutational type of P53. It must be either diffusely positive. The cutoff value given in the publication and CAP protocol is of 80% present in nuclei of more than 80% of tumor cells, or it should be completely negative, which is called null type of pattern. While P53 staining in endometrioid carcinoma is wild type, It is patchy and weak expression in scattered nuclei. The caveat here is the high-grade FIGO grade 3 tumors can show aberrant high expression of p53. So p53 should always be supplemented whenever there is doubt with ERPR staining and p16. So this is how do we differentiate endometrioid carcinoma with papillary architecture from serous carcinoma. These patterns, below glandular, small non-villous, and micropapillary pattern have less cellular atypia and mitotic activity. While in serous carcinoma, the atypia is prominent. Endometrioid carcinoma with these patterns arises in a background of hyperplasia, so one should search the biopsy for the background. While background in serous carcinoma, it may have atrophic glands or it may be present in a polyp. The glands have sharply delineated borders, while in serous carcinoma, the cells are hobnailed and exfoliative. Cells are shed inside the lumen. So a close look on morphology, we need to find out the morphological features in the biopsy, supplement it with IHC. In endometrioid carcinoma, the ER/PR is very beautifully positive, especially ER. We have a very good experience with ER of nuclear positivity. The p53 is of wild type with patchy and focal staining, and p16 is also focal. While in serous carcinoma, the p16 is diffuse block-like positivity, and p53 is of mutation type or null type. Now this is p53 staining in serous carcinoma present. It is a diffuse overexpression of p53, typical in most serous carcinoma, while null type staining, which is complete negativity of p53 in subset of serous carcinoma. When we get such kind of staining, we should always see for internal controls and look back into external controls in immunohistochemistry. Now p16 staining is strong and diffuse in serous carcinoma. Now here also for p16, here is a caveat that there may be aberrant expression in high-grade endometrioid carcinomas for both p53 and p16. So we should use a panel of ER/PR also, and no single stains should be used. A few highlights on endometrioid carcinoma: they are estrogen-derived tumors with well-defined precursor lesion. And approximately 80% of all endometrial cancers are endometrioid carcinoma of low grade, FIGO grade 1, 2. Etiology is of conditions with estrogen excess like PCOD, exogenous hormone therapy in postmenopausal females, estrogen secreting ovarian tumors, or any hereditary cancer syndromes like the endometrioid carcinomas are associated with HNPCC or Lynch syndrome and Cowden's syndrome. Now here, around 50% of tumors show microsatellite instability when tested endometrioid tumors. Now the prognostic factors in endometrioid carcinoma is obviously the FIGO grade and TNM stage, along with presence of myometrial invasion. So myometrial invasion commenting is also very important prognostic factor in these endometrioid carcinoma. The cervical stromal involvement along with serosal adnexal involvement and nodal metastasis. Low-grade tumors have a very good prognosis, while serous carcinomas are high-grade, they do not require gating and they have a poorer prognosis. Other parameters are the size, the histological features like LVI. The pattern of invasion nowadays being discussed is MELF pattern of invasion in the myometrium, which is microcystic, elongated, and fragmented glands, which we cannot identify on histology, should be supplemented with IHC. And the tumors are positive for ER, PR, and p53. They are wild type. Now a comment upon these HNPCCs and Lynch syndrome. HNPCC, around 50% of the females having this syndrome, they develop over a few course of time endometrial cancers. Of majority are endometrioid types. There is mutation in one of the 4 mismatch repair genes, which leads to microsatellite instability, the MLH1, MSH2, MSH6, and PMS2. There should be universal screening of all endometrial cancers for Lynch syndrome. And while we do biomarker reporting in endometrioid cancers, we include ERPR along with these mismatch repair IHC markers. Various histological features which are associated with endometrioid carcinomas are the endometrioid histiotype. They are mostly present in lower uterine segment associated with TILs, and some of the dedifferentiated and undifferentiated carcinomas they have this microsatellite instability. So these are the tumors of endometrioid morphology with peritumoral lymphocytes present. One of the example is this endometrioid carcinoma, which had MLH1 gene on immunohistochemistry, but there was loss of MSH2. Now, highlights of serous carcinoma: these are high-grade estrogen-independent type of tumors. They come under type 2 tumors, which are independent of estrogen stimulation. They often arise, they are of high grade, they often arise in endometrial polyps, or the background of endometrium is atrophic. I again stress upon the use of P53 IHC in serous carcinomas. They show the mutational patterns. They are associated with worse prognosis than endometrioid carcinoma and can present at high stage. Associated with, they are of 5 to 10% of endometrial carcinomas. TP53 mutations are around 80 to 90% present in these tumors. IHC has already been discussed. So differentiating serous and endometrioid carcinoma is very important in biopsies. In fact, most of the biopsies should be typed because the treatment depends upon them. The surgeons are very aggressive while they are treating serous carcinomas. They do all staging hysterectomy. They do ementectomy and good lymphadenectomy. So they want that it should be typed and should be very careful while we give a diagnosis of serous carcinoma when we have small foci in the endometrial biopsy. Now, third case is again a biopsy of 50-year female presenting with abnormal uterine bleeding. Now, this patient had on low power view had features of a well-differentiated endometrioid carcinoma, but in between, we could see mucin. The glands showed mucin in the lining. Again, a foci. The mucin was also seen in the stroma. So what differential should we consider? The differentials considered were like this endometrioid carcinoma has a lot of metaplasia. But along with this metaplasia, we have in the biopsies or in the hysterectomy specimen, we have the usual features of endometrioid carcinoma, which should be searched upon. So we had a differential of endometrioid carcinoma of endometrial origin with mucinous metaplasia and endocervical adenocarcinoma. Now, on morphology, these endometrioid carcinoma, they lack characteristic luminal mitosis and basal apoptosis, which is present in HPV-associated endocervical adenocarcinoma. And EC with mucinous metaplasia has qualitatively more intraepithelial mucin than usual type of endometrioid carcinoma. Now, again, in such diagnostically difficult cases, we supplement with IHC. These endometrioid carcinomas are ERPR positive, and these endocervical adenocarcinoma are CEA and P16 positive. So we use a panel in this case of ERPR, sometimes Vimentin, along with CEA and P16. These endocervical adenocarcinomas are typically mucin decreased, and they have prominent apical mitosis, a lot of mitosis, and basal apoptotic bodies. Now, fourth case in which we are stuck up in while routine reporting of endometrial biopsies with atypical morphology. The patient is a 58-year female with vaginal bleeding. Now, the morphology here, we can immediately say that we have clear cells. So the first picture shows the clear cells which are arranged in a diffuse pattern. Second is a picture of cells arranged in a glandular pattern. We can easily see that the glands are lined by cells which are hobnailing. They are protruded inside the lumen. The cells also have clear cell morphology. So the differential in such type of cases where we have clear cell morphology in an endometrium, we should know about the differential and don't bang upon a diagnosis of clear cell carcinoma directly. Differentials considered are clear cell carcinoma pure type, endometrioid carcinoma with clear cell change. So search for more of areas of typical of endometrioid carcinoma. Serous carcinoma with clear cell features, even serous carcinoma can have clear cell features in a diffuse type of morphology, or a metastatic renal cell carcinoma, which is the most notorious carcinoma which we encounter with clear cell morphology. And I have seen this clear cell carcinoma coming to any side of the body, and we get small biopsies. We get clear cell morphologies. We first apply CD10 in the panel of the markers, and it comes positive. So, n number of cases of this metastatic renal cell carcinoma, and then we go back to the radiology, talk to the clinicians, and we find a primary in the renal cell carcinoma. So how the differentials are ruled out. EEC with clear cell change are ER-PR positive. Serous carcinoma again has good P53, abnormal P53 expression. Metastatic renal cell carcinomas are CD10 positive. And this pure clear cell carcinoma, this case was ER negative. ER was present in the surrounding normal endometrium. This was napsin A positive. So this turned out to be clear cell carcinoma of endometrium. It is a rare tumors in comparison to the endometrial and the serous subtype. It has high molecular heterogeneity. Like all four, which are molecular subtypes, can be seen in these clear cell carcinomas, which I will be dealing in the later part of the talk. These are high-grade carcinomas confined to uterus in the majority of cases, and diagnosis depends on the presence of the morphological features, like the clear cells can be arranged as sheets, as papillae, or as glands. The cells are polygonal with moderate to abundant clear or eosinophilic cytoplasm. They are hobnail cells and flat cells, and variable cytological atypia with low mitotic index. So we apply an IHC of napsin and Amaker in our lab. HNF1B we are not using. So up till now we have discussed various patterns of endometrioid carcinoma can be confused, like clear cell pattern, the papillary pattern, the mucinous pattern. When these patterns they come in biopsies, they can be confused with other variants of endometrial cancer. So one should know about it, and we should not deter ourselves from using immunohistochemistry. So my next case number 5, is a postmenopausal female. This is again a DNC specimen, tumor with endometrioid morphology. Now what we found here is there are sheets of tumor cells along with this endometrioid morphology. These sheets of tumor cells are present. They were present around the blood vessels, and they are very monotonous looking kind of cells. On a hyper view, again, we got a endometrioid morphology and a distinctive sheets of cells of different morphology of a high-grade carcinoma. So the differentials kept here were grade 3 endometrioid carcinoma, the dedifferentiated or undifferentiated carcinoma, when it is presenting with a focus of endometrioid carcinoma, or mixed carcinomas of endometrioid and solid pattern of serous carcinoma. So these word of on mixed carcinomas, like related to serous carcinomas, when we get biopsies, when we have a foci of serous carcinomas and endometrioid carcinomas, which we diagnose on immunohistochemistry. So it was previously said that it should be at least 10% of tumor to come to say it as mixed carcinoma. But on biopsy, if you have any focus of serous carcinoma present along with these endometrioid carcinoma, comment upon that, give the size of the tumor or percentage of tumor, and suggest that it may be a mixed carcinoma. So the differential in this case was a grade 3 endometrioid carcinoma, a DDIF carcinoma, with a component of endometrioid plus undiff carcinomas and mixed carcinomas. So how to differentiate? Again, a panel of IHC was put. The histomorphology here had both components of endometrioid carcinoma and this solid sheet of tumor. This endometrioid focus was ER positive, but the solid focus was ER negative. So a grade 3 endometrioid carcinoma was ruled out. This was also PR negative. To supplement ER, we used PR, and P53 was expressed in this solid tumors. So up till now, we could not rule out serous carcinoma because in this solid area, this P53 was positive. So how to differentiate between an undifferentiated component of a dedifferentiated carcinoma? We applied cytokeratin, which was focally positive in these glandular element, but the solid element was negative. So CK supplemented, even EMA was negative, which is not there in the picture. So while reporting, when we see any high-grade carcinomas, we should not forget about these undifferentiated and dedifferentiated carcinomas. Although undifferentiated carcinoma is a diagnosis of exclusion, and we should not follow a protocol that if you're not able to classify the carcinoma, we give it as undifferentiated carcinoma. We do all panel of IHC markers. We rule out lymphomas, the plasmacytomas, high-grade stromal sarcomas, all the neuroendocrine tumor carcinoma. Then we rule out all the markers, and then we come to a diagnosis of undifferentiated carcinoma. But this case was a case of dedifferentiated carcinoma. It had a component of well-differentiated carcinoma and dedifferentiated component. There was a sharp demarcation between the two components, and immunoprofile is component dependent, and these are microsatellite unstable tumors. They have lack of markers of the MMR genes. So my case 6 is a 35-year-old female, which was the most difficult case for me to handle. I was running around from people to people that what exactly, but after extensive sampling of the hysterectomy specimen, I could come to a diagnosis. That is when I felt that how can these tumors can really be difficult to diagnose. So first I got the endometrial biopsy of this female, 35 years old female. The biopsy, it showed endometrial thickness of around 12 millimeter. The biopsy had these pleomorphic cells. On hyper view, we could see these pleomorphic cells, high mitotic figures. So we could not differentiate between a high-grade Mullerian tumor and a sarcoma. So I immediately informed the our oncopathologist, he said we'll immediately do an extensive hysterectomy, the staging hysterectomy, and we got the hysterectomy within 3 days. First, when my resident had done the sampling, the grossing, he took just 2 or 3 sections from the endometrium. It showed just the endometrial glands. The endometrial, I was just fixed after seeing these sections, because the biopsy which was reported by me had sarcomatous element. Then the sections which I first got had endometrioid elements. I could not correlate. I thought maybe there is a misreporting or misdiagnosis. So I myself did the sampling again, the grossing, regrossing. I took more and more sections. So glitch in these cases is that you should do extensive sampling when you are not very sure what the exact subtyping of the tumor is. When I extensively sampled, I found this sarcomatous element along with this carcinoma element. It had all LVIs and all. A very small focus also showed this rhabdomyosarcomatous component in the tumor. It has extensive mitotic figures, so I could figure it out that it is a very poor prognostic tumor. It also had deposits in the lymph node, in the omentum, as well as the tumor had gone to the right, to the ovary. Ovary too had both the features of a carcinoma along with sarcoma. The IHC panel which we applied was to differentiate between, although it looked very obvious when I'm seeing it again, but to differentiate between the high grade, these PO grade 3 endometrioid tumors and all. So we could easily see these CK positive islands, these EMA positive islands, these vimentin positive sheets of cells which were sarcomatous component. So this too could not differentiate between, because even the high grade tumors, carcinoma, they can very well express vimentin. So on the basis of vimentin, we cannot differentiate between a carcinosarcoma or a high grade carcinoma. So since I had found the rhabdomyosarcoma element, I had applied Myogen and it came out to be beautifully positive. It supplemented my diagnosis. So I reported it as carcinoma, endometrioid carcinoma and heterologous rhabdomyosarcomatous component in the carcinosarcoma, which had metastasized to the ovary, to the omentum and the lymph nodes. So I'm sorry for the staging, but it was a stage 4 tumor. So word about carcinosarcoma, the diagnosis is made in the presence of malignant epithelial and mesenchymal components, typically showing a sharp demarcation between the two. These carcinosarcomas are staged similarly to the endometrial carcinomas and not using uterine sarcoma staging systems. In stage 1 uterine carcinosarcomas, the adverse prognostic indicators include serous and clear cell morphology and the presence of heterologous mesenchymal element. So my case had a poorer prognosis. It had a high stage. Now it is very important to note that extensive sampling in an undifferentiated sarcoma or pleomorphic may reveal areas of diagnostic carcinosarcoma. So in high grade tumor, if you're suspecting something else, do extensive sampling, you may get good features of a particular subtype of tumor. Immunohistochemistry further supplements and helps in the diagnosis, and we should comment upon the percentage and type of the epithelial and mesenchymal elements present in the tumor in our main pathology report. We usually follow the CAP protocol for reporting of all our oncopathology specimens. Now this was my last case. I have dealt with the low-grade tumor and the mimickers, the clear cell carcinomas, the dedifferentiated carcinomas, and the serous carcinoma. How much IHC is important in these tumors. We should not bump upon a diagnosis on these on small biopsies. Use IHCs. Do not hesitate to take second opinions. And a word on molecular subtyping of tumors, because in your classification is coming. So this molecular subtyping of tumors is being integrated with these morphological subtypes. And this molecular subtyping is going to become standard of care in the diagnosis of endometrial carcinomas. The Cancer Genome Atlas 2013 had defined 4 molecular and prognostic subgroups of endometrial carcinoma: the copy number high type, the copy number low type, microsatellite unstable hypermutated tumors, and pol ultramutated, that is polymerase epsilon mutated tumors. Now this is a absolutely separate seminar which could take almost an hour. I have just summarized because it is an important and upcoming topic. Now in these, TCGA has been simplified by the PROMIS classification. The survival rate is best in pol mutated tumors, followed by copy number low, followed by microsatellite unstable, and copy number high carcinomas. And when combined with clinical pathological features, these classifiers are highly correlating with outcome and survival curves. Now, this PROMIS classification, it is again the simplified and recapitulated the TCGA risk groups by using the p53 immunohistochemistry, the mismatch repair MMR proteins, and by sequencing for pol exonuclease domain mutation. They have made an algorithm. They have 4 groups which serves as corollaries to the TGCA subgroups, which is pol exonuclease mutated tumors, the mismatch repair deficient tumors, the p53 wild type tumors, which has wild type category of p53, and p53 abnormal or mutated tumors. They are using this algorithm to classify. Firstly, they do pol sequencing to classify them as pol mutated tumor. If it is pol wild type, they do IHC. If it is IHC, on IHC, if the mismatch repair genes are lost, it is MMR abnormal group. If MMR, all the 4 markers are intact, they go for p53 IHC. If it is abnormal, it is p53 mutated type. If it is normal, then there is no specific molecular subgroup or p53 wild type. These 4 molecular subgroups confer clinical and prognostic information. Various treatment strategies are being tailored and clinical trials are upcoming. Now this is a chart which differentiate all these 4 molecular subtypes. First one is pol mutated. The alternate name is from the TCGA classification. The pol mutated is also called ultra mutated pol mutated cancers. They have high mutational burdens, and the proportion is just 5% of the endometrial tumors. The histological features may be of low grade or high grade endometrioid carcinomas. And the treatment given are being the under trial are immune checkpoint inhibitors. The second subgroup is of the MMR deficient subgroup, in which the microsatellite instability is high. The mismatch repair proteins are deficient. They may be of high or low grade endometrioid histology. The features which I had already shown, the tumor may have peritumoral lymphocytes. They may have substantial lymphovascular invasion and myometrial invasion. They may have ambiguous morphology. Immune checkpoint inhibitors are under trial, and they have to be referred to hereditary cancer program for suspected Lynch syndrome and for further workup for Lynch syndrome or HNPCC. So this is the third subgroup is p53 wild type. Absence of mutation of p53. The females are mostly perimenopausal. They are mostly low-grade endometrioid histology. This is the most common subgroup, accounting for around 45% of cases. They tend to express ERPR as it is present in most low-grade endometrioid cancers. If they are early stage tumors, hormonal management, fertility sparing management is given, and it may be considered when it is a low grade tumor and low stage tumor. And the fourth group is P53 abnormal type. The copy number is and may also be associated with BRCA BRCA mutation and ERBB2, which is HER2. And it is as it correlates with the serous morphology. It is a high stage tumor with poor outcome, mostly postmenopausal females, and mostly serous histology with the high lymphovascular invasion and destructive growth patterns, and possible role for HER2 inhibitors. So in biomarker reporting, HER2 is also one of the marker which is included in the CAP protocol for reporting in the biomarkers for endometrial cancer. So again, a slide for correlation between these morphological subtypes and the molecular subtypes. Pole mutated cancer, it may be low or high grade endometrioid types. MMR deficient cancers, low or high grade endometrioid types. A subset of undifferentiated and dedifferentiated cancer can also be MMR deficient. They have peritumoral lymphocytes, high lymphovascular invasion. And this P53 wild type are mostly low grade endometrioid carcinomas. And P53 mutate type, as already discussed with serous carcinomas, mostly are P53 mutated and they have high grade morphology. So with this, I end my talk. It was a short topic, and the basic glitches we encounter in our day-to-day practice was discussed. So I thank you to the organizer for giving me this opportunity along with very senior pathologists to give a talk in this conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was very interesting and educative slide seminar, and you started with a recent classification of the endometrial cancers, and also discussed cases which play a potential pitfall as well as trouble some cases, and the need for IHC. And also you illustrated with good H&E sections as well as IHCs. Do you do all the markers, ma'am? IHC markers. What panel you usually use when an endometrial carcinoma is suspected?
If we have to differentiate, if we have a differential diagnosis of an EIN and endometrioid carcinoma, we do not have any IHC marker. It is on just the morphology. It should be hammered into brains of our residents that we do not have any IHC to differentiate between EIN and endometrioid carcinomas. Now, for endometrioid carcinomas and serous carcinoma, we use a panel of ER, PR, P53, and P16. Like, we do not use a single marker. We should never use a single marker for diagnosing any tumor because they may be aberrant expression of P53 and P16 in high grade endometrioid carcinomas. But for lower grade endometrioid carcinomas, this ER-PR and our P53 panel works very well. We had few cases of clear cell carcinoma which was of diagnostic difficulty. We used Napsin and P53, which worked out very well. And for undifferentiated carcinomas, like for very high grade tumors, which look like lymphoma in morphology, like we had a case of DLBL in endometrial cancers. So we have to put a panel of all synaptophysin, CK, LCA, and other markers to rule out other tumors before coming to a diagnosis. So always a panel is used.
Yeah, you do it in biopsy specimens or hysterectomy? Means it's difficult to do in biopsy. We get a very little sample, and to do all the IHC markers is difficult. Right?
When we get a biopsy specimen and the tumor is very small, there is no point in coming to a diagnosis, and we should always give differential, what I feel. And